Hello, and welcome to episode 16 of the Kalopa Mission Control Podcast. I am your host, and it is, as always, a profound privilege to welcome you back to our quiet, observant corner of the maritime world. Whether you are listening to this while walking along a windswept shingle beach, pulling your collar up against a damp, rolling sea fret, or perhaps sitting indoors in a comfortable armchair, listening to the muffled, rhythmic ticking of a hall clock, I invite you to pause, take a deep, slow breath, let the tension in your shoulders melt away, and allow the relentless, demanding pace of the modern world to simply fade into the background. Here, in this auditory sanctuary, we do not measure our time by the frantic alerts of a glowing screen or the urgent demands of a calendar. Instead, we measure it by the ancient, eternal breathing of the tides. We gather to track the meticulous, patient engineering of Kalopa Robotics and to marvel at the vast, complex, and deeply poetic expanse of our blue planet. When we speak of protecting the ocean, it is easy to imagine the sea as an empty, pristine wilderness, a blank canvas upon which we can simply draw lines of conservation. But the reality is that the coastal ocean is a deeply human space. It is a crowded, contested realm where ecology, culture, and livelihoods intersect. This delicate balance is currently playing out on the sun-drenched coastline of Southern California. In recent weeks, the California Fish and Game Commission has been holding public hearings regarding the proposed expansion of their marine protected area network. The atmosphere in these meeting rooms has been visibly divided, reflecting a profoundly human dilemma. On one side of the room, you have environmental advocates and Indigenous leaders wearing blue shirts, campaigning for the creation of the Mishop-Shno and Point Sal protected areas. For the Santa Ynez Band of Chumash Indians, these waters are not merely habitats, they are ancestral homelands. Protecting these rocky reefs and kelp forests is a matter of cultural continuity, a way to honour the deep reciprocal relationship their people have held with the sea for millennia. On the other side of the room, you have multi-generational commercial and recreational fishermen wearing green shirts, fighting to maintain access to the waters that sustain their families. For them, the ocean is their livelihood, their heritage, and their primary source of food. They argue that closing these specific, accessible fishing grounds will devastate local economies and sever their own deep-rooted connection to the sea. It is not a simple battle of right and wrong. It is a complex negotiation between two groups of people who share a profound love for the ocean, but who view its stewardship through entirely different lenses. It reminds us that true marine conservation cannot be achieved by decree alone. It requires empathy, compromise, and a willingness to listen to the communities whose lives are tethered to the tides. Even when we do successfully navigate these social complexities and establish protected marine sanctuaries, we are faced with a sobering reality. The ocean is the ultimate downstream environment. It effortlessly absorbs the invisible consequences of our lives on land. A stark reminder of this vulnerability recently emerged from the Solent, a busy historic stretch of water between Portsmouth and the Isle of Wight in the United Kingdom. The Solent is an internationally protected area, celebrated for its ecological value. Yet, a new study conducted by the University of Portsmouth and the Marine Conservation Society has revealed a pervasive, invisible threat lurking within its food web. Researchers tested the waters, the sediments, and the marine life for a family of synthetic chemicals known as PFAS. These are the compounds used in our everyday non-stick cookware, waterproof clothing, and firefighting foams. They are incredibly resilient, earning them the ominous nickname forever chemicals because they simply do not break down in the environment. What the scientists found is heartbreaking. These forever chemicals are present at every level of the Solent's marine ecosystem. They found them in the swaying fronds of seaweed, in the tissues of crabs and fish, and most tragically, concentrated in the livers of harbour porpoises at levels far exceeding regulatory safety thresholds. Because these chemicals bioaccumulate, meaning they build up in concentration as they move up the food chain, the apex predators bear the heaviest, most toxic burden. It is a quiet chemical erosion of marine health. The researchers pointed out that local wastewater treatment plants are simply not designed to filter out these modern synthetic compounds. It highlights a fundamental truth of ocean conservation. We cannot fully protect a marine environment simply by drawing a boundary around it in the water. We must fundamentally change what we allow to flow into it from the land. Yet, for all the challenges of coastal management and invisible pollution, there are moments of brilliant, tangible success that prove what is possible when science, policy, and local communities align. Consider the beautiful, dynamic waters surrounding the Isle of Jersey in the English Channel. Sitting at a confluence of powerful tidal currents, Jersey's waters support a spectacular array of life, from resident bottlenose dolphins to dense swaying kelp forests. But the jewel in their ecological crown is the maerl beds. Maerl is a type of calcified, hard red algae. It grows loose on the seafloor, forming intricate coral-like pink structures that provide vital nursery grounds for juvenile scallops and countless other species. It is astonishingly beautiful, but it is also incredibly fragile and painfully slow growing. To grow just 1 single millimetre can take an entire year. For decades, these fragile pink beds were vulnerable to the heavy scraping nets of bottom trawlers and dredgers. A single pass of heavy fishing gear could obliterate centuries of slow, patient growth in a matter of seconds. But recently, the government of Jersey took a monumental step. They officially approved legislation protecting nearly 24% of their waters from all mobile bottom-towed fishing gear. This effectively places a permanent shield over the ancient maerl beds. What makes this achievement so remarkable is how it was done. The new marine protected areas were defined unambiguously as no mobile gear zones. This means that while destructive trawling is banned, the local Jersey fishing fleet, which relies predominantly on low-impact static gear like crab and lobster pots, can continue to operate sustainably within the sanctuaries. It is a masterpiece of targeted conservation. By working with the local fishing community rather than against them, Jersey has created a safe haven that protects biodiversity while simultaneously supporting a sustainable local blue economy. It is proof that when we give the ocean the peace and space it requires, it has a miraculous capacity to endure and provide. The challenge that links the contested kelp forests of California, the chemical monitoring of the Solent, and the protected maerl beds of Jersey is the immense difficulty of observing and understanding the ocean on a continuous basis. The sea is vast, often hostile, and incredibly expensive to monitor using traditional crude research vessels. This brings us to the very heart of what we do here at Kalopa Robotics. If you were to step through the heavy soundproofed doors of our mission control room today, you would find the space bathed in a quiet, ambient glow. The primary telemetry screens, which usually scroll endlessly with live satellite data, are currently in standby mode. We have no active missions at sea right now. Our fleet of 2.4-metre autonomous sailboats is resting safely in the engineering workshop. The boats smell faintly of dried sea salt, marine epoxy and soldering flux. Their bright yellow hulls are dry, and their rigid carbon fibre wing sails are detached and resting on padded workbenches. Our engineers are deep in the meticulous, unhurried process of running diagnostic checks, polishing the solar arrays, and refining our navigational code. While our fleet is safely in drydock, it grants us a rare, quiet moment to reflect on the rapidly evolving world of maritime robotics and the sheer, staggering scale of what autonomous vessels are now achieving. Just recently, the United States Coast Guard announced the deployment of a fleet of autonomous sail drones across the Great Lakes. These uncrewed, wind-powered vessels will spend the entire summer gathering real-time meteorological data and monitoring vessel traffic, acting as tireless robotic sentinels on those massive inland seas. Even more astonishingly, an autonomous, solar-powered vessel named the Lightfish recently completed a 4,000-mile crossing of the Atlantic Ocean. Departing from South Carolina, it navigated the unforgiving expanse of the open sea entirely without human intervention, arriving safely in Portugal 62 days later. These feats of robotic endurance are magnificent, but as any engineer in our workshop will tell you, surviving the open ocean for months at a time is not merely a matter of building a strong hull. It is a matter of mastering the delicate, unforgiving mathematics of energy. When you look at our 2.4-metre Kalopa vessels, you are looking at machines designed for absolute uncompromising efficiency. In the world of the Micro Transat Challenge, the global community of engineers dedicated to autonomous sailing, the greatest threat is not always a violent breaking wave. Often, the greatest threat is a slow, creeping starvation of power. Unlike massive military drone ships or commercial freighters, our boats do not carry heavy diesel generators or sprawling banks of lithium batteries. They are entirely at the mercy of the elements. They rely on the wind to push their rigid wing sails, and they rely on a solar array, roughly the size of a dinner placemat, to harvest the sun's energy to power their electronic brains. Out in the middle of the North Atlantic, under a thick grey canopy of storm clouds that can block the sun for a week at a time, every single microwatt of electricity becomes precious. To survive this, our engineers have to code the navigation brain of the boat to mimic the deep, slow rhythms of a hibernating animal. The boat does not think continuously, it sleeps. Every few minutes, the microcontroller wakes up. It takes a rapid, precise fix from the GPS satellites orbiting high above. It checks its internal compass and it calculates its drift. It sends a tiny momentary pulse of electricity to the microservo, adjusting the tail vane on the wing sail by a fraction of a degree to catch the shifting wind. And then instantly it goes back to sleep. It is a beautiful, rhythmic cycle of waking and resting, designed to draw as little power as physically possible. If the boat senses that its battery voltage is dropping dangerously low during a prolonged storm, it will go into a deep survival mode. It will shut down its satellite modem, refusing to send telemetry back to us here in Mission Control, choosing instead to hoard its last drops of energy just to keep the rudder functioning. For us sitting in the warm, dry control room, those days of radio silence are agonizing, but we know the boat is doing exactly what it was programmed to do: survive. But the ocean does not just challenge our power reserves, it actively tries to consume the vessel itself. If you were to pull an autonomous boat out of the water after a 60-day crossing of the Atlantic, you would barely recognize the hull. The sleek, hydrodynamically perfect surface we launched from the slipway would be entirely encrusted in marine life. The ocean is a thick biological soup. The moment a solid object enters the water, it is colonized. First comes a microscopic layer of bacterial slime, then come the algae, and finally, the nemesis of every mariner and roboticist, the pelagic gooseneck barnacle. These barnacles attach themselves to the hull, the rudder, and the keel, growing rapidly in the nutrient-rich currents. For a massive cargo ship, a layer of barnacles means a slight drop in fuel efficiency, but for a 2.4-metre sailboat powered only by the wind, it is devastating. 10 pounds of barnacles create an immense amount of hydrodynamic drag. A boat that could comfortably sail at 3 knots in a light breeze suddenly requires a gale just to move forward. The rudder becomes sluggish, struggling to turn against the weight of the marine growth. The boat is slowly, inevitably transformed into a drifting artificial reef. This is why our engineers spend countless hours researching and testing advanced non-toxic hull coatings. We are constantly searching for materials that are so microscopically smooth that the barnacle larvae simply cannot find a foothold, allowing our boats to slip cleanly through the water, leaving no trace behind. It is slow, demanding, and deeply meticulous work, but it is driven by a profound sense of purpose. Think back to the challenges we have explored today. The fishermen and indigenous communities of California trying to manage their coastal heritage. The invisible chemical threats accumulating in the porpoises of the Solent. The fragile, slow-growing maerl beds of Jersey. To protect these spaces, to enforce these sanctuaries, and to truly understand the health of our blue planet, we need eyes and ears on the water. We need fleets of silent, non-intrusive robotic sentinels capable of gliding through a marine park for months at a time, sampling the water for pollutants, listening for the acoustic signatures of illegal trawlers, and beaming that vital data back to the scientists and policymakers ashore. So, while our workshop remains quiet today, the work is far from paused. We are refining our sleep state algorithms, we are testing our hull coatings, and we are preparing. Because when the time comes to launch our next vessel into the surf, we know that it carries more than just microchips and solar panels. It carries our collective commitment to watch over the waters that sustain us all. Thank you for sharing this time with me today. If you have enjoyed our exploration of marine conservation and the robotic technology we build to support it, please consider subscribing to the Kalopa Mission Control Podcast on your favourite platform. And if you know someone who feels that same inescapable pull toward the sea, I would be deeply grateful if you shared this episode with them. Until we meet again, may your horizons be clear, the wind be fair, and the seas be kind. Goodbye for now. Summary. In episode 16 of the Kalopa Mission Control Podcast, we delve into the deeply human complexities of ocean conservation and the ongoing evolution of maritime robotics. We explore the tense negotiations surrounding California's proposed marine protected areas, balancing Indigenous heritage with the livelihoods of traditional fishing communities. We also examine the invisible threat of PFAS forever chemicals infiltrating the protected food webs of the UK's Solent before celebrating a monumental conservation victory in Jersey, where historic maerl beds have been shielded from destructive bottom trawling. Finally, with the Kalopa fleet resting in drydock, we reflect on the staggering endurance required for autonomous ocean crossings. We discuss the meticulous energy budgeting of our 2.4-metre wind-powered boats and the relentless creeping threat of biofouling, highlighting the engineering required to build the silent, enduring sentinels our blue planet so desperately needs.